Hey everyone, Richard Robbins here. Thank you for tuning in. Well, we have now reached the end of 2020 into 2023, and I have a complete update on what happened in the greater Vancouver area for 2022. Obviously, crazy year in many ways. Rates going up, sales going down, inventory going up. So I'm going to go through all of the numbers. Some of these visuals, I should say, are brilliant for you to use working with buyers and with sellers to help them exactly what is going on. So let's do this. Let's start with what happened in the last 12 months of 2022 in terms of sales. If we look at this, you can see that we started out the year with 2,285 sales in January. And of course, we peaked the year at 4,344 sales, which happened in the month of March. Now, after that, I guess the good old saying, it was all downhill from there, because after that, it just constantly went down. We had a little bit of an uptick there, you notice, September to October, but overall, the market just continued to slide down to the point we did 1,295 sales in the month of December. Now, let's do this. Let's compare the last 6 years in terms of December sales, because it puts perspective on how did December end up. Well, if we look in 2017, we did 2,016 sales. And then if we move forward 1 year, we're down to 1,072 in that month of December. Now, keep in mind, in 2018, we had the vacant home tax that went in. So if you owned a home and it was vacant, you were going to be taxed on that. And they also raised the foreign buyer tax. So I think that had a bit of an effect in that market. You can see that in 2019, sales went up a little bit. 2020 went to 3,093. Now, 2020, that was COVID year, everybody. So remember, January, February, March, it was terrible. And then the market started to take off after that and continued strong into 2021. But where did we end up in 2022? You can see roughly half of what we did in 2021 in December. Now, what about if we go back 5 years and look at a line graph? This is a real cool visual for you to use in some of your presentations. So you can see the blue line, the thicker line, that was last year, that was 2022. You can see sort of the orangish, yellowish line, that is 2021. So if we look at that, we can see 2022 never started out as strong as 2021 did. Now, keeping in mind, remember, 2020 of the COVID year, remember, we went down and we sort of hit the bottom of the valley in March. And then after that, you can see in that red line, then it started to take off and just sort of continually got stronger, throughout the year. And you can see in December of 2020, it was actually the strongest December in the last 5 years. And then, of course, we came into 2021, it starts strong, it takes off, up into March, and then it starts to slide down. Still very, very good, but starts to slide down a little bit. And then, of course, we can see what happened in 2022. We peaked in March and continued to go down from there. Why? Obviously, interest rates. If we go back and we look at January, the Bank of Canada rate was at 0.25%. Yes, almost free money. What happened after that? It went one way the rest of the year, just continued to go up. And we ended at 4.25%. Now, honestly, think about that. We had interest rate increases, the Bank of Canada rate, of 4% over the course of a year. Well, that's going to have a dramatic effect on a real estate market. There's no question. And in all fairness, we might see another rate increase in January. Will we see 2 this year? Nobody knows for sure, but I think we're going to see another one, for sure, maybe a second. And then I think after that, everything's going to start to level out a little bit. So that obviously is going to have an effect in the market. But what we all have to remember is this, is that if you go back to January, February, March, rates were very, very low. That's what people had in their mind. So they were conditioned to those rates. And then they start going up throughout the year. And then all of a sudden, what will happen is people will become conditioned to new rates, but it takes them a little while. So I think, this year people will get used to it. They'll get back to normal. They'll say, hey, we got to sell. We got to buy. We can't help what rates are. Rates are what they are. And I think until we get inflation under control, because Bank of Canada have said that they want inflation at 2%, and they're going to do whatever is possible to get it there, which means that we're going to hold rates high for a little while. And also, let's say supply chain issues have caused our inflation to be a little bit higher. So hopefully we're going to see that get under control as well. And then when will rates start to go down? Nobody knows for sure. I tend to think maybe not this year, but I think maybe into the first part of next year, we'll start to see that. But what about total sales over the last 6 years? So if we took the whole 12 months of your year and we looked at the last 6 years and the number of sales in your market, here's what they look like right here. So you can see we had 35,000, let's say 36,000 homes in 2017. Now, remember, foreign buyer tax goes up. People that, are not renting out their properties, they're going to be taxed as well. And these were big numbers, everybody. And that really had an effect in 2018 and 2019. Now, we talked about COVID. Well, COVID hit in 2020. So you can see that the first, 3 months were terrible. 5 months were slow before the market started to pick up. So you did 31,000 sales in 2020. And look at 2021. It was a killer year, right? We did almost 44,000 sales. And then, of course, now rates start going up and we ended up about 29,000 sales for the year. So obviously down substantially, above 2018 and 19, very close to what we did in 2020, but again, way below what we did in 2021. What about inventory? What about months of inventory? So if you look at this slide here, if you look down the left side, it shows you got sales, you got active listings, you got months of inventory. And by the way, months of inventory, you just take the active listings and divide the sales into it. And that gives you months of inventory. And then we got benchmark price. Now, months of inventory is a very, very strong indicator as to where your prices are going to go. It's your supply and demand. Now, if you look in January, we had 2.5 months of supply, which 2.5 months of supply is a pretty strong seller's market. Now, once we hit sort of 4 months of inventory, we move into a balanced market. And once we get to sort of 6 months, we start to move into more of a buyer's market. Now, keeping in mind that all micro markets can be a little different even within a macro market. But if you just look at these numbers, once we hit March, we're at 1.8, strongest month of the year. Then after that, for argument's sake, months of inventory continued to climb. We ended up at 5.7 months of inventory, which means days in the market were increasing as well. So it just shows you what's happening. We're starting to move. We're still sitting in balanced to buyer market territory is where we're sitting right there. So what happened with prices over the last number of years? Well, here's your benchmark price, everybody. So you can see we're almost at $1 million in 2017, almost 1.1, okay, in 2018. And of course, we know 2018-19 sales weakened a little bit. Average comes down or benchmark comes down to about $1 million, a little bit better in 2020. And then look what happened in 2021 and 1.22 in 2022. So year over year, prices have done very, very well. Month over month for the last number of months, not so much. And I would suggest we're going to see probably a little weakening, definitely in the first quarter of 2023 as well. So then the question is, what is my crazy prediction? And doesn't mean it's right. It's just a prediction coming into 2023. As I said, whenever there's uncertainty in a marketplace, what people tend to do is they stop, right? They just put all of their plans on hold. And if they don't have to do anything, they don't. Our inventory didn't go up as fast as I thought it would with what was going on in 2022. I thought the inventory with the interest rates, inventory would have rose faster, but it actually didn't. Definitely rose, but didn't go up as fast. I think we're going to see more inventory in the first half of 2023. I really do, which means we're probably going to move into more buyer market territory in 2023 in the first 6 months of the year. After that, nobody knows for sure, which means we better get much better at what it is we do because buyers are going to have more choice. I believe that. Buyers are probably going to be able to negotiate a little bit more because sellers are going to start competing to sell. Think about it. You have 2 months of inventory. 50% of the listings are selling every month. Well, you get up to 5 months of inventory. Guess what? We only got 20% of the listings selling every month. Only 1 out of 5, which means people start to compete to sell. And as you know, some people have to sell. They lower their prices, effectively setting a new average price or benchmark price in a certain area. So anyway, it is what it is. There's still lots of opportunity out there. I think the key in this market is to provide buyers and sellers with as much content as you can to help them make the best decision that they can, and then help them with that decision. Happy New Year, everybody. And at the end of the day, remember, it's a beautiful life. Make it count.